Testing.
Get back over there, please.
Testing. Testing. Testing.
This is going to be a recording of a seance in hopes that it will work. The lights will be turned out with the aquarium light on, and we will conduct it right now. The spirit is Mr. Jones, and we will be talking with him tonight. He claims it's okay to use the tape recorder, which we are going to do now. Ron, would you turn out the lights, please? This is probably better for séance.
Actually, you are happy.
It's a séance without the circle. Is it in a good place? Mr. Jones, when you're ready to enter this group gathering here, please show us your presence in some way by causing some kind of a creaking noise if you can. I heard it, I think. But would you make it louder? I don't want to make a creaking noise. Okay, Mr. Jones. I'll turn my voice off, and I will, or we will, wait for you to take over as you may. I feel myself falling, possibly falling into a trance. We'll keep quiet and wait. I've had a little interference in coming back, but this time I feel much more capable of speaking, and I'm real glad to be here. I want to hear this recording when you are finished playing it.
Certainly, Mr. Jones. We shall play it back.
I've been rude in the past, and I've probably lost a little bit of my stature. And I've probably done things I shouldn't have. But if I have, I plead for your most most humble forgiveness, I ask that you might remember me as being more kind and more of a happy man. I want you to realize now, John, that things I'm about to tell you tonight or in the future, I would like to do the talking. I don't want any questions asked. And after I'm through, if you have questions and I'm able to answer them, I will try to answer them for you if I'm able to stay that long. Ron, over here, I want something from you. I noticed when I looked at you a few minutes ago that you have very much of a powerful brain. Your brain is so powerful that it radiates this electricity to help me to come into the room. Ron, you're my friend and I will cause you no harm. Ron, I want you to listen along and possibly to concentrate along. I came down to your room to get you tonight through another individual whom I'm very proud of. You three are my only companions at the present time. Before I had one, and that's John. John met Chuck several months ago, and Chuck told him many things of which I'm going to say that are going to happen. But you realize now every spirit has this power to foretell the future. I don't want you to be afraid. There's nothing to fear. I want you to be my friends as I've come to you. I've been with John almost 13 years now. Or is it 14? It's 13 going on 14, I think. And I want John to understand why I've been with him. John, I've been with you for one reason. I'm a very, very psychic person before I die. I'm not really what you'd say dead today, but in your society, most people would say there's no such thing as a spirit. Am I not correct?
You are correct.
But,
As I understand it.
but, no questions, remember. I know you have the potentials, the capability, the power, the moving that I need to fulfill my experiments, of which Chuck Edwards has been telling you about. Now these things are not going to come overnight. It's going to take much long study, much work. I will direct you to these things in a way that is going to seem unusual. You might not even give me credit for it. When you're reading a book, you're going to come across something so interesting you're going to want to read it, but something's going to tell you no, there's something more important. Follow that inward decision. Look at whatever it tells you. You will find more important things than what you ever dreamed of. Also, John, you're going to be taking many trips in your lifetime. I see you possibly going to as far as around the world. Your experiments will be working. They will bring fame and they will bring you fortune. They will bring you happiness. I'm not doing this to hurt you or to help you especially. I'm doing it to help others as I tried to do in my life. But since I'm unable to continue my work, you must go and continue it for me. You must follow the path that's been led before you. You must realize it's going to be work, but it's going to be worth it. It's not sin, I don't think, because you're going to be helping others to help themselves. and Ron here. He's got such a powerful brain. I see him as a very, very important person within the next 10 years. Hardly ever heard of in his past. Many tragedies hitting him. I would say tragedies of the mind. Things that have been going through his mind for years. Things saying, when is this going to stop? Why do I do these things? Don't give up, Ron. These things are in you. There's not too much you can do to change them, so why don't you just live with them? I want you to remember what I have to say. I can't help you in any way. But within 10 years, will be like going from poverty to prosperity. You will not be poor. You might not necessarily be the richest man in the world, but I see something great ahead. Something great for you. And I've been observing Chuck. He doesn't realize it half the time. He doesn't know what spirit's in here at times. Once in a while I come over, since I met him that night when he was talking to you, John. And I do know that some of his things have been derived through me. I've been helping him to a certain extent. In a few days, I'm not going to be around him much anymore, except through possibly a calling of me. I know he will have the potentials to be 95 to 100% accurate in his predictions. John, are you listening?
I am, Mr. Jones.
Here's what's going to happen. It's hard for me to say exactly how it will happen and everything, because my memory is not that good, but I'm your friend, you're my friend. Here's the way it's going to take its course. When you go home, you're getting out of the service soon. I want you to start reading books on anything that enters your mind. You might even start it before you get out of the service to get a head start. The sooner you start, the sooner you'll have it. I'm going to lead you through these books. You're going to think it's boring at times. You aren't going to find something. But the more you work with it, the more you'll find what I have to reveal. I will reveal these things. Like I said, you're going to think, here's an interesting article. Go back to the back, wherever the front, wherever I take you. Read what that subconscious thing says to read. Then, go back and read what your first idea was to read. Because maybe I've led you to both of them. Maybe I'm giving them an order. Maybe I'm not. Possibly I could be on the wrong track sometimes. But when you read these things, you will see how your life will take its place. I cannot reveal my name because I don't want people to know I was a great person in this world, but they didn't know I knew about these things. And I don't want them to ever find out, because I was not doing it for myself, but for those of others who need the help. I want you, John, to continue. I'm going to bid you all farewell now, as I am about to leave. That was the end of the tape. Don't say anything. The next part of this tape is going to consist of what we think about the tape what we thought about what we just heard now. And I think Mr. Jones should have heard it by now, heard the recording. And I feel his presence here with us. I know he is listening. So, when you heard the words, Joe, could have that been Chinese?
Somewhat. It could have been Chinese or Japanese.
It wasn't Japanese.
It was Oriental.
Mongolian.
It sounded Oriental.
I have a feeling Mongolian.
We might check that out. Is it possible these words don't mean a thing? Is it possible
it
he's
means
trying
something.
to use my voice? Get used to my voice before he started talking?
Perhaps, but I feel there's something more to
At the beginning of the tape,
it. I think it's kind of a code for me in a way because I kind of know what's going on. It deals with some literature I have in my barracks.
what language is it in?
Well, actually, it's a language not spoken today as such. It's more an area of Mongolia. This is the impression. Something to do with the Teowie Empire, civilization that existed before the time of Genghis Khan.
Now, at the beginning of the tape, you said something about, that sounded like a barnyard while we were listening. Barnyard, whatever you want to call it. What gives you this opinion?
It just sounded, for a minute, it sounded like duck. It sounded like a dog.
I could hear a bird. And I don't know how I could ever make a noise like that because I can't whistle.
Well, perhaps we can. My impression of this is it symbolizes something for Ron or for me, which would be better really, but we'll be living in the rural part of the country. I don't mean necessarily the country, but we won't be living in large cities per se, like New York or something like this. We might be near them. This might be a symbol of sorts, I don't know. It could be many things.
One more question, or one more train of thought. When I was listening to the tape, I could feel his presence as though he was listening. I might be on the wrong track, or he did say to play it back. He wanted to hear it. When I talked to him before I even turned the tape recorder on, he wanted to play it, so I figured he'd want to hear it.
Well,
So I do feel he was listening. I feel he still is. How many years have you had this dream, John, that could possibly link with him?
it's not so much a dream. In some cases it is, but mostly it's a feeling.
I think it's more
How many years?
deep
I would
down
say
ambition.
approximately 13, 14 years.
On the nose.
I would not know. Since the time I was 8 years old.
Might be
It
a,
would be 13 going on 14, like you said, then possibly.
might be a deep down ambition. What it seems
There's
like.
a drive.
Or drive instead of a dream.
There's a drive. There's a force. There's something egging you on. It's like you're guilty of something, only you aren't. You have a force here.
I know there was,
And this ties in very much with what this other friend of mine who was psychic said. He said that my mind was occupied, you may, or, well, that isn't the proper word, but controlled or something since the time I was 8 years old. Medicine has determined this also. So this fact I know is pretty basic. So
That was since you were 8 years old.
yes, 8 years old.
Was it shortly after you turned 8 or shortly before you
I
turned
don't know.
9?
I don't know. I was in second grade. That's all.
You said 13 or 14 years.
All right, I was in the second grade, that's all I know.
Would have that been 13 or 14 years ago?
Yes.
One thing bothered me when I listened to that. Now, I'm not familiar with my voice, but especially the first part of it sounded like a different voice to me. It didn't sound like my voice.
It definitely wasn't.
It wasn't.
He sounds very much like an elderly gentleman who, happy-go-lucky sort of person, somebody who was the sort of person who would enjoy going to the library or going to the park and enjoying nature and that sort of thing.
It didn't sound a bit like my voice does now.
No. And actually, the tone of the voice changed. At first, it was somewhat of a happy-go-lucky, and you had your gibberish in there. You had your farm scene and your farm animal sounds. You had your Mongolian, if you may. Then you reached the point where he started speaking, and then he started talking like a father or a teacher to his students.
Don't say you, say the spirit, for more specific terms, you know.
Well,
You know what I mean? I know what you mean, though. Well, one other thing. I remember one thing. Poverty and prosperity. What do these words mean? Poverty is being poor, right? What does prosperity mean?
well, prosperity. It's strictly having good things in life. And this was
Not
reference.
necessarily money.
Is it an opposite of poverty, though?
Yes.
Yes. In a way.
I don't even know that
Not
word.
really. It could be
That's
ambitious
terrible.
goals.
I would think in your case it'd be your mind's at ease. You're taking life in stride. You have your economic basis. In other words, you have your essential needs in life. You're happy.
Oh, that's right. He was talking to you, though.
I noticed when he was talking to me, I don't know whether it was body reflex or what. I don't know if you noticed or not, my hand was going like this,
I didn't notice that.
You mean it was opening and closing?
opening and closing.
What caused that?
I don't know, it felt like, I don't know, like nerves,
Huh,
tension.
that's amazing.
I can't even get it to do it like it was doing before.
I know.
It was kind of like it was going to sleep, but it wasn't.
It was stiff.
Stiff,
Stiff
And how fast would it open and close?
real slow.
Real slow.
Not like that.
About once every 5 or 10 seconds.
You can't put a time basis on it so much. I think it's more of a
Yeah, only, I mean, the tape recorder, we're recording it, they can't see, you know, how fast the hand is moving. That's why I put time this. What was your feeling about this? Was it like something else could be moving it?
Possibly.
That's amazing. Did you notice anything?
nothing whatsoever. I was intent on listening to the voice.
Would you say it was his voice you heard through me, rather than my own voice?
Definitely, yes. The whole tone, mannerism, the context, everything was a great deal different from yours.
But towards the end, I've listened to my voice a lot of times. I don't recall hearing it like first, or making any noise. I don't think I could even pronounce words like that.
It's
That
quite
would
definitely,
be
it's
you.
not, you don't speak that way. You just don't. That's all there's to it.
But towards the end, it sounded a little bit like my voice. Did it not, or was it just me?
Oh, I think it was still the voice. Because vocabulary,
What about the way he spaced his sentences and
this
the
is what I'm
words?
driving at.
Now, is that anything like the way I space them? Now, you find this hard.
No.
No?
nothing whatsoever. It sounded like an older gentleman, much like a father or grandfather's sort of gentleman, and students around him or something.
Well, now normally in other seances, though, they will, normally in other seances, people will talk in their normal voice, except maybe it'll be a little lower or higher pitched, but it seems maybe drawn out a little bit. I haven't noticed that much difference.
His voice was quite definitely of an older person. It was a gentleman's voice.
So he must really have had the contact come through.
I feel he did.
And yeah, it's so amazing. This is only what, the third time I have ever had a spirit talk through me without linking hands with someone else in a spirit circle.
You have to realize the nature of the whole, if you may, solo seance.
Yeah, the reason for it, you mean.
Yes. The reason here is a little bit different than most cases.
Oh, would you mind doing something just for the sake of this recording? Tell who you are.
I'm John McGibbard. This is the person that the voice was referring to when he spoke of John. And I was very much interested in this because I think this fact has been borne out by what has been said by Mr. Jones. And likewise, I'm doing this with Ron and Chuck, and we are trying to determine a number of things so that in the future we have a better understanding not only of ourselves but also of other people and the world around us. Whether take a course which we don't feel is the best or otherwise is not being determined here as such. This is more of a learning situation or investigation, if you may. And also,
I'm Mr. Jones, and I'm the one that has been talking to you through Chuck here. That's about all I need to say, because you all know me, you know me, and I know you. If I don't, eventually I will. I would like to have John introduce himself now. I've enjoyed listening to this recording, this discussion. And now, Ron, I'm sorry, Ron, you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Jones.
Well, that's good. Now I want you to get up there and tell them who their future great person is going to be within the next 10 years. You're going to be a great person in the next 10 years, and I want you to remember this. When you become that person, remember, I told you. Now please, Ron, tell them who you are.
I'm Ron Snyder. I came to the seance because I was directed here by the Spirit. I don't know what great things I will do or how I will do them. As the Spirit said, He can't tell me. So I'll just have to find out in time.
Thanks, Ron. My name is Chuck Edwards. I'm the one supposedly the one the spirit talked through. And I've been in many seances before, of which only 3 have been conducted with the alias Mr. Jones. Last night he kind of screamed a little bit because John here was arguing with me to get me to have Mr. Jones do something in possibly a physical standard. And then tonight, today John told me about how it kind of scared him. I had fear marked all over my face and stuff. Now these things I wasn't too aware of. So we had one seance tonight. It was so amazing. The light was on, and all of a sudden it just took over my body. I felt it when we were talking about it in the TV room, John and I. Ron had left to clean his room. Poor guy, he's got to get back yet. But so I told John I felt the spirit was wanting to contact him. I didn't know why, but for some reason I had the psychic feeling he did. So we came in here and something directed me to Ron's room. And I said, Ron, I don't know why, you're supposed to be in here for it if you can. He was cleaning his room, but something, I guess, apparently caused him to feel that he should too. So he came in, and we had the seance, and it wasn't really a seance. It wasn't a spirit circle, it was a seance. The spirit talked through me to them, and I want them to kind of tell about this first and second seance, but we decided to have the third one, and before we had the third conversation with him, I asked him if he'd speak to us again. He said yes. This was kind of mentally. I asked him if it would be okay to record it, and I got the feeling of him saying yes, most definitely, please do. And I asked him, are you sure? And he said, what did he say? I told you guys.
What reference do you know?
Yeah.
Please do, but play it back.
Please do, but play it back for me, or please do if you want me to, if you want to. So, something like that. And so I set up the tape recorder, and in a matter of seconds he was talking. As you well heard from the time I set it up, working with the microphone there, they're all scratching around. Now, John, I want you, if you don't mind, to tell what happened last night when Vince, you and I were there, and your roommate Terry.
Last night, approximately 10 o'clock, Chuck come over to my room, and
11 o'clock.
well, 11 o'clock, and I don't know the time exactly, but anyway, he come over to the room, and he wanted to speak about a couple of things to me, and he was also interested in my roommate, and his ability of hunches, and his hunches seem to parallel some of Chuck's statements concerning me. So Chuck made himself to home. He was seated in a chair at the desk. I was lounging around on the bed, or at times on my feet, as I am now. Of course, my roommate at this time was in bed. And so
What are the documents?
then another person entered the room. His name was Vince. And he entered later. He was looking for Chuck. So I was asking a number of questions to Chuck concerning some statements he had said earlier in our acquaintanceship, our friendship. they seem to revolve around the same things, same issues, so forth. And Chuck seemed to go off into a trance. It's like he'd fallen asleep. And a couple minutes later, he was a very violent reaction. In other words, the spirit that we've had contact with tonight was present in the room, and he spoke through Chuck, and he was very indignant with me because of my impatience and so forth, my seeming to debate methods of contact. Also, I was fearful of this, so I seemed to argue the issue, and as the spirit spoke through Chuck, he acted very violently. It's one of the most electrifying experiences I've ever had in my life. In fact, it's the most electrifying experience I have in memory. I was very, very much afraid. I was paralyzed with fear, if anything. I was on my feet when this happened. Well, I should say I was laying on the bed, and I immediately was on my feet. And describing Chuck's reaction, or we'll say his, at this, I would say it was, it reminded me very much of a person who had lost his mind or something. He shouted at the top of his lungs, something I know he can't do under normal circumstances, even if he tried very much to do so. He said, have patience, or you will be sorry, you will lose your wealth. And I was very much moved by this. Right after this happened, Chuck, being seated, reacted very violently, like he was in convulsions. He appeared at one point there to like he was gagging, and his eyes seemed to roll at one point, and they seemed to stare out into space. It was a very electrifying experience with me. I felt like I'd been charged with a high voltage of sorts. Vince was very much moved by this, and due to his convictions, he seemed to offer some arguments that the spirit withdrew. Then Chuck felt that the spirit re-entered the situation, that is the group of us, and to listen to Vince with his dissertation on God and some of the religious aspects of today, in relation to what we were doing. And also at this time, the chair in which Chuck was seated creaked. I believe it was a couple of times. I wasn't cognizant the first time. I don't remember that. He told me this. The second one, or at least what appeared to be the second one in the events, was one I did hear. And Chuck demonstrated to himself that he could not cause the same thing to happen under his own volition. So, meanwhile, this spirit re-entered the group, as I've said before. So finally, with a little bickering and arguing and discussion of sorts, and the experience being what it is, everybody was a little bit upset. I don't think Chuck was. He wasn't afraid so much, but his throat was sore. He experienced a physical discomforts of sorts. He was shivering, and, as though he were coming in from a cold, or was in a draft or something. And I knew quite definitely that he doesn't act this way all of the time. I don't know of any person who does, except under very, very extreme situations of emotional stress. And I never experienced this in my life, either myself or others. And I'm quite certain that Chuck hasn't found this kind of place in his life at all. So it was quite definitely a unique encounter. The spirit was very much disappointed that he couldn't get through. He wanted to deliver a message to me, and he was somewhat irritable at the problems trying to get through. He was also irritable at me. I didn't understand some of the things. I was probably a great deal of fault with this. I think a lot of this was just reaction. But anyway, we did assure the spirit that no harm would come. We tried to, at another time and date, try to make a more convenient contact of sorts. Excuse me. And thus try to help the spirit come through to us with his message. And so I proceeded to go to bed, and at this time I felt very warm throughout my body. I seemed to have a whiteness in my mind with my eyes closed. I don't know if this was from the emotion or what. I inclined to think otherwise. But of course I had an extra blanket over me too. This might have caused a great share of this. But as it is, I went off to sleep. I got up the next morning, which is 28th of November, which was Thursday, Thanksgiving, in 1968. And after deliberating over the events of the preceding night, I decided to contact Chuck and talk things over with him, apologize for some things that might not have been kosher, and try to reinaugurate a better relationship with not only the spirit but also our friendship. And this is the reason for this seance tonight. And I think it's been very successful. It's been very moving for me. The three of us who are here certainly derived a great benefit from it. We've answered a number of our questions of sorts. We used the tape recorder here because we felt that this seance had special significance. I think it does. I think Chuck does too. This is the reason why I'm giving this, so that for future time, if the occasion should arise, that phenomena of this sort should come under investigation or be of interest to people of good faith and will, it might be used to prove out some of the unique qualities of the world we live in, the lives we live, which we sometimes don't appreciate as much as we should, and yet we try in our own humble way. This tape is, I hope, will serve a purpose for the benefit of mankind later, so that he might begun to realize more of himself as a creature in the universe, a makeup of creation. The world is much in need of explanations, and much in need of some of the basic qualities which would make for a better world. And if this should improve it or enhance it in any matter, then I think it's well worth the time, the effort, and the intention that to be this way. I have nothing further to say. Perhaps Chuck does.
Yes, there's one thing, John. Did you say something about you heard at Cherry Creek last night?
Yes, I did. I heard it once. After discussing it, after the event, it seemed to be that the Cherry Creek twice, and I heard it the second time. I don't think I heard it the first because there seemed to be...
No, I mean after I left while you were...
Oh, yes, yes.
You'd gone to bed.
After I'd gone to bed, it felt like the chair that Chuck had sat in creaked a couple of times now. I thought this was the bed, and so I lay very still so as not to cause any springs or the mattress to move and cause the creaking sound. And I felt that the chair did creak. Now, I myself call this psychoelasticity. In other words, no object moved as such. The chair did not move across the room or anything. It was sitting there on the floor, and if it moved, it was very negligible as far as measurement goes. But it was at least a perceptual movement as far as the sound goes. I heard this twice, and I haven't heard anything like this since.
Also, on this creaking noise, you might wonder what we mean by a creaking noise. It's like, it's really hard to explain. It's just like wood creaking when you pull the nail out or something. This creak I've tried to make in the chair, like John said when I was sitting there last night, and I couldn't get it to creak whatsoever. But yet we all heard it creak. Now this has been done with tables and other objects. A table, by concentrating on it floating, is believed that the spirits, or mind over matter if you wish, will cause a table to raise off the floor. Now I've seen this done before. It raised, I'd say, approximately 3 to 6 inches. This doesn't happen at every seance I've been at, but I'd say every seance I've been at, I have heard the creaking noise in the table, like I explained about the chair. At these seances, we'll try to creak the table, and sometimes if we work with it for 5 or 10 minutes maybe not that long, I'm not sure, but we could get it to creak, you know. But the thing of it is, the spirit would answer by creaking, and there were no hands or knees around the table at any of these seances. Now, I was sitting in the chair, but like I say, I tried every which way to get that chair to creak by shifting my position and by leaning back and everything else.
May I add a point in reference to what he's saying here? I was at one seance where there was a group of people in a circle, and they had contact through hands. In other words, they served as generators of electricity for the spirit to enter into the circle and speak through the medium. I was apart from this, observing, and the medium, or be it in this case Chuck, asked that the table be raised, and then he asked that people would concentrate on the levitation of the table. And I did notice a perceptual movement of the table upwards. I was to measure it, I would say approximately a quarter of an inch at the most. Now, I tried to get a fixed point, in other words, a reference against a wall or some other object in the room, so that, if my movements myself would not give me a false impression on this, or give me a false, perception. And I quite definitely believe that the table moved. There was definitely a creaking sound. The sound he tried to describe as a nail being pulled out of wood. I would think of it as much as a building settling, only some more defined sound in a local area, or perhaps, it was strictly the sound of wood, if you may, or in the case of metal, it might be a little bit of a ring to it, but not too much. It's strictly a local force. It's not, you wouldn't consider the creaking force something that's apparent to a great extent.
Okay, thank you, John. Ron's left the room. You probably heard him leave. He's gone back to get cleaned up. It's about bedtime for us, so I wish y'all the best, and I hope that this tape has served its purpose. Like I say, or like John said, today is the 28th of November, 1968. It's Thursday night, Thanksgiving. And we have given the details of our seances as closely as what we can. So until next time, God bless each and every one of you. And this recording was re-recorded
From a reel-to-reel tape to an audio cassette tape.
on April 13th, 1986. It's Monday.
And on October 4th, 2020, which is a Sunday, this recording was transferred to digital format to make it even better. I hope you enjoy it. My name now is Chase Edwards. It used to be Chuck Edwards. End of story.